Hey, so welcome into Philadelphia Walks PTSD. My name is Sharon Cole, or Sharon, whatever you want to refer to me as. No big deal. Rat, pig, horse, cow, dinosaur, lizard, what have you. I've been called everything under the sun. I don't know what all those words mean to each different group or person who uses them, and in a good way, don't care. So I am here on day 135 of my one video each day, 365-day campaign raising money for a life lost and stolen, raped, robbed, the whole 9 yards, to extreme harassment, which began on the fourth Monday of January 2011 when I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment by a series of orchestrated events. I actually thought someone was going to come up into my door. I lived in a front half studio apartment of a first floor in a row home that was converted to apartments. I absolutely believed it was the last night of my life. I was trembling, shaking, convulsing. I could barely hold the phone. I had a Palm smartphone at the time. And it was the first time I had ever had a Palm phone or a smartphone, because I had a flip phone up until then. Of course, the events caused me to eventually go back to flip phone for many years, and I wouldn't have a smartphone again until 2019 because of how crazy this was. And that was because of all the stimulation and all the timing and all the coincidental things, text messages, and the games commenced after even the night that I thought that I would be killed in my apartment. So I 100% believed that it was the last night of my life, really 2000%. Called my sister, the police, and picked up my sister the next day, then stayed at someone who I considered a friend. I stayed at someone else's place for another 3 nights after my sister came up to stay for a night. And then I called my mom in, and then she stayed for about a week, a little over a week. And it wasn't until then that I felt comfortable staying in my apartment by myself. It was really bad what happened. Whoever set this up does know it was really bad. I don't know what their intentions were or what they thought they were doing, but no one's said anything. So I thought I believed I'd be murdered the fourth Monday of January 2011. And if that weren't enough, the games commenced. And after that, a lot of people who I'd met leading up to this, and these were healthy people. It's not like I was part of some world where people will expect it. I was part of a running group. I volunteered with 2 groups with the LGBT community. I did the dragon boat racing. There were a lot of positive things going on in my life. And I sort of wound up in dog walking because of having had different job experience. I was a writer before. I worked on staff at North American Publishing Company, which is now across from the police, which used to be across from the Inquirer. The Inquirer building is now the police precinct, like the headquarters for police. But the company that I worked for, they had since already moved over to Spring Garden Street. And I was also a freelance writer. I got a really good gig for freelance writing through Erickson Retirement Communities. So I was able to leave my on-staff position and freelance for a while. Then, I started doing a whole bunch of jobs, working at a whole bunch of other places to earn extra money and also to circulate, because when you freelance write, you become very isolated and you're not interacting with the world as much. And I was alone and kind of needed the money. And an independent woman kind of has to, find a way to be able to pay her bills, without having to rely on anyone else. I didn't have a partner or a spouse or anything like that to share resources, or a roommate. That was another thing that came up. I tried a roommate thing, and in my case, I keep finding situations that aren't so great. So until I could find something that would be great and healthy and not dangerous. So there you have it. So anyway, on this day 135, what I really want to talk about is Boathouse Row and a situation that occurred after my mom had left, after I dragged her up here to spend time with me because I was so scared. And luckily she was in a position to kind of do that. So she had to sit in my apartment, which would be a little bit, actually quite cold during the day because of the way that it was heated. It was controlled by the landlord, who kept radiators in our building, or row home converted to apartments. And we had record blizzards and snowfall that year, the biggest since 1941. And by the way, my mom was born in 1941. So anyway, after she left, I somehow contacted someone who I knew from a running group. I used to run with the front runners group a long time ago, just to keep active and to keep in shape. And they do all the marathons and stuff like that. But usually they meet, say, on Saturday mornings, and they'll do a mile and a half out and back for almost 3.1 miles, right from Lloyd Hall at Boathouse Row on Kelly Drive, which is a very popular place to run here in Philadelphia. So I called him up. This was a guy I met through that group. And this guy, his name was Craig, but he would also run with other people in addition to this group. So somehow we connected, and I was like, they were going for a run, and I was like, can I run with you? Because I was too afraid to be alone. So I often would reach out to people, and I tried to I would say, something totally weird happened, but I didn't want to sound too crazy or schizophrenic or paranoid or anything like that. So he picks me up, and he has kind of a Batmobile, and this is part of gang stalking, or I don't know what he was doing. The thing is, he's a nice guy, so it gets really blurred as to who's doing what. But he had sort of like a black Dodge Challenger or Charger, similar, with orange or red lighting inside the car, and say reddish seats or what have you. So it kind of can feel like the devil car, It kind of didn't match because he has a personality of being very almost like nerdy, gingerish, freckly Irish guy who is incredibly, nerdy Irish, that type. But anyway, he picked me up and he kind of played something on the tape cassette or whatever. And a song came on that made me want to cry. I hadn't cried at all since everything started because I was stunned into shock. I was completely shocked by whatever happened. And I didn't know how to cry. I was just constantly going, and shaking, shivering all the time. And just, it's a constant thing. I had hypervigilance. I could hear things like a mile away. It was just like the refrigerator would kick on, the engine in the refrigerator, or however it works, generator. And that would be really loud, like a train was coming through my apartment. So anyway, he picks me up. He did something with the music and he was talking really fast. He's very good at talking very fast. And I cried for a second, but then stopped. Then he picked up another person who'd be running with us. And this guy lived on Spring Garden, the southeast corner of Spring Garden and Broad Street. And that next door used to be like a police athletic league or something similar. So he gets out of it. He pulls right up and off of Spring Garden in front of this small condo building. There's also a dialysis building there, DaVita Dialysis. So he gets out of the car to pick up his friend, and I'm sitting in the car. By now it was darker because this was a night run. It was kind of like a dusk night run. So I'm sitting in the car and someone comes up to the car. And Spring Garden is on the edge of sketchiness. Actually, it's a lot better now because they've been building so much, but still, it's a little bit actually, it is still very sketchy. I was up to the Giant store that they built up there now, and I felt kind of chased around outside of the Giant store. So it's kind of on the edge of, probably not the best idea to always hang out there. This guy in a hoodie comes up, and he's next to the window of this Dodge Challenger, which was, I think he had it still running, in a parked emergency brake position. I can't remember, just to collect his friend. I wasn't that threatened by that guy because it seemed more dumb, goofy-ish, I guess, but it was on the side of questionable, did they do it on purpose? Do these people work for someone and they were trying to scare me on purpose? So anyway, that aside, waited a good 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and finally, Craig comes out with his friend. We drive up to Lloyd Hall area where you can park, and then to start our run. I had my yak tracks on, so I was enough of a runner to wear yak tracks, which you put on your shoes so that you can run in snow, I guess, and a little bit of ice, or if the snow is slippery and packed down. So we run out to the point that we want to run out to. We're running back, and as we come closer to Boathouse Row, Craig decided he wanted to call his mom really quick and take a selfie picture or do a cell phone video, hey, I'm running with my friend Sharon, and the other guy's name, we'll just say Chris, say hello. And we're oh, hello. But I was actually scared, but wanting to be with people as much as possible so that I wasn't alone. So it's everybody say hello to his mom. And I forget where she lived. I want to say the Midwest, because I think he was from like Iowa or somewhere in the Midwest. So then he puts his phone away. Then we start running. We get closer to Boathouse Row, which would be the last stretch before you get to the parking lot when you finish up a run. And all of a sudden, they start running. There's like someone behind us kind of running, and they start running faster. And these are taller guys. They're guys. They're taller. I'm like 5'2.5" at best, and someone who at the time I was an okay runner, but technically I would still be considered in the early stages of like developing running. I had a nice clip, but it would still be considered on the slow-ish side to most people um, who are regular runners. So they start running very quickly. I was in shape though, because I had been running so much. I had actually probably by then I had done like a 5K or two and a half marathon. I did like the Odyssey marathon half. So anyway, they start running very quickly, and I'm left behind while there's someone back here who's like scary runner guy. So the idea would be, and it was like the idea was there was an African American guy with bad intentions. That would be, and I looked quite different today. I look like, technically my entire life I've had short dark hair, and I've been letting my hair grow long. And when I say my entire adult life, I've had short dark hair. Except for the past couple of years, I've been letting it grow long, and I bleached it blonde. So really, I'm a dark-haired person. But anyway, so the idea was I was left behind, and I felt like I had to hurry up and keep up with them and keep up with them and keep up with them. And I actually was scared in that moment. They scared me by, I don't know if they set it up to have this guy, but the friend of Craig said, never trust a guy who asks you to run in the snow, or he really said something like, someone's not a friend if they ask you to run in the snow. So, anyway, I had to like run like the Dickens to keep up with them, and they were scaring me on purpose and leaving me behind on purpose while there was a, seemingly scary African American guy behind me, running, in like a spooky way. So I don't know exactly what there could be all kinds of messages that go with that. But it is sort of like everybody leaves people in the dust and leaves, quiet, nice, innocent girls behind for someone who's supposed to represent scary, uncool, and so forth and so on. And that's kind of the message that I would read out today. Back then, I had no idea what was going on. I was just like, why are they doing this? Like, why are they scaring me constantly? So that's it. I will wrap it up. I just wanted to keep it on the quick side. That's another layer of the constant, terrorization of me in set up situations. I kept being set up and set up and set up. And I'm wondering why, because these are people who, it's not like they're running the streets or anything. This guy with this nice car, these are people who, seem upstanding in a community, who have participated in a lot of things. Why were they doing this to me without further explanation? I had to sort of figure it out on my own. And he still seemed nice. He dropped me off. I came home and I wound up having like a really healthy dinner, because when you do things like running or whatever, you feel like super adult, like you're an adult. It has that effect on people. It's like, I'll have this healthy meal here. It's hard to explain. There's a feeling that goes with it. So anyway, I made like a French bean casserole, or French green bean casserole with leftover things. So on top of everything else, I was saving money and eating cheaply and as healthily as possible. So that's important to say, because it's all part of everything that happened. But why did they scare me? Why were they willing to go through all that? And why were they willing to kind of like kick the dust and like start running very quickly and leave me? Why did he take the picture? Why did that guy say never, trust a guy or whoever? No one's a friend if they ask you to run in the snow with them. Ha ha ha, So there you have it. One of 1,000,002 things that went on that felt set up, orchestrated, and done on purpose to scare me. And I have yet to know exactly why. And as if other people can play God or be superior to me. And it's funny because in many ways, I actually know that I'm superior to them. Okay, thank you so much and have a great day.